All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 2025 and welcome to AI Business Asia podcast number 10, the podcast that brings you AI insights about the business world. I'm your host, Leo Jiang. I was a former chief digital officer at Huawei, recognized as one of top 10 CDOs globally. Today, I had the pleasure to welcome Parade Mishra to join me, who is the head of data analytics at DHL. So welcome to the show, Parade. Really, really pleasant to have your presence here. Maybe just break it out, a quick intro, who you are, what you do, and we fire away after that.
Sure. Thank you so much, Leo, for having me here. I wish a very happy new year to all your subscribers and listeners. A quick introduction about me. I currently head data analytics in Asia Pacific for DHL, and I've been working in the data analytics and AI field for more than 13 years now. A lot of it has been focused in manufacturing and supply chain domain, and obviously, data analytics is my passion. And I look at how we can derive business value from analytics and AI strategies as well as applications. So really looking forward to discussing here with you some of my observations, some of my key learnings, and also things that I find challenging, and I explore and discuss that with you.
Nice. Funky learnings, I like that word. Tell me something that you felt very fascinating and funky in your business that relevant to AI.
Difficult to difficult to pin down one. Difficult to pin down one, but I think there was something. Sometimes it was a very interesting thing. Sometimes you think a lot of things can be very basic, at least when we are approaching it from a technology point of view. We think that, this is a given. But when we talk to the business folks, when we talk to operations and logistics being such an operations heavy business, how its impact changes certain aspects of the business, I think that I find very fascinating. So a simple report that we think, okay, this is just a visualization, but how the impact that it creates in operations, I think that becomes very interesting. So on one side, we are dealing with visualizations and Power BI and KPI and reporting. On the other side, we're talking about agentic AIs, and I think life is about finding the balance between these two.
Do you find business people get it when you talk about all these cool stuff like agentic LLMs? Do they get it?
I think they do. I think one major thing that has happened with ChatGPT and all the other LLMs, Gemini and Meta, everything exploding and becoming super popular, is I think folks have become increasingly aware. Obviously, it's still a black box as to how it works, and I think we have conversations around how things can be more impactful and how this can help them. But I think a lot of business users understand that this technology exists and it's something that is inevitable. There is some sort of adoption that needs to happen. So I think they get it, but also between you and I, it makes our life a bit difficult. Because earlier, the traditional data science era, we were the ones using the model, and it was very easy for us to say, oh, you know what, machine learning is a black box model. So, let's look at the inputs, let's train it, and we'll see the outputs, and then we'll help you evaluate. But now folks are increasingly, they are aware of what the capabilities are, and folks can judge it. And they can be like, no, I know it can do more. So, it's fascinating.
I think 100% very fascinating phenomenon where elevation of people's awareness or knowledge around AI and interest by far being the most driver for this progression. I guess at the same time, it does make our job a little bit more difficult to explain things in a more sort of expert level.
True. And to actually convey it in a form that business understands. I mean, I think that has been a key thing forever, and it continues to be. It was always the case where we had to explain it in a way that business can understand data science and data analytics, and it still stays. But the business user has become fairly advanced when it comes to AI.
Okay, which is good segue to. So let me ask this question: because of people's awareness and knowledge about AI at a business level is increasingly higher, would you say the business case are driven by the business or is driven by your department?
I still see a good mix.
Business, I mean use case of AI. Is it driven by use or by data analytics AI team?
So I think I see a good mix. I would still say that it is supported by the team, by the AI and the data teams. I think generally business knows the business problems or things that they would want to improve or change and transform. And I think the good thing is that we are getting involved with the business to figure out how AI and data analytics can help them achieve this. I would still say there are cases where we come up with the use cases and we suggest and we pitch things to business users where, tell us about your process a bit more so we can see where we can add value. So those discussions happen. But I think generally what we have seen is that the business is coming forward with, what can AI help with this? I remember I just recently we did this proof of concept of testing an HR software and automating some of the test cases, and that was a business led use case where they saw that there was automation possibility and they can improve the efficiency. So I think it's coming both ways. The good thing is that at least for the AI is part of the big picture. Data analytics is part of the big picture. Hence, a lot of strategic initiatives have the AI and data components being discussed from a very early stage, which I think is a very positive change.
Mm.
So I would still say it's a mix, but the signals are encouraging that business
Mm.
comes up with a use case and business knows how to identify certain areas.
Okay, just so people understand, for DHL and a massive company, everybody knows which part of your function fits within the organization and how you fit or how do you support the organization.
Yes, absolutely. DHL is absolutely a massive company, more than 500,000 employees, also several business units, and those business units are also massive in their own regard. So we have 5 business units. We have the express division, we have global forwarding and freight, we have supply chain, we have e-commerce, as well as the post and parcel business in Germany. Where I come from is we have established a center of excellence called DHL Data Analytics, and we form a horizontal. We support all the business units, and we work with the functional teams to within the business units to come up with strategies. The business units have their own analytics, a lot of times analytics heads as well as analytics team embedded within them, but they work very closely with us as well. So it's kind of a centralized plus decentralized model, if you would like to say. It's a mix where we are the centralized team, we are looking at the cross business unit analytics applications as well, and then business units focus on their specific things and also include us when because they are slightly smaller teams than us for now, so they include us and they involve us when the projects based on the project needs.
Got
Yeah,
it.
so we support all the business units within DHL.
Then I suppose you will oversee a lot of initiatives or challenges on the other side of initiatives. And you just briefly mentioned about the HR use cases. What would you say the top 3 use cases of AI that you're looking at in DHL?
Maybe AI adoption has been going up in DHL for a while now. Let me make it interesting by just talking about the GenAI part and the top 3 use cases there. So one of the big wins that I consider is we launched an internal generative AI hub. So this was an internal chatbot considering all the data protection, privacy laws and everything. We rolled out an internal chatbot very early, fairly early. It was launched beginning of 2024 itself, and it's it has reached about close to more than 80,000 users within DHL. So quite a few people use that and use that as a sparring partner, which I think is a fairly big achievement. And also, it is not just to be attributed to us, but the good thing was that a cross-functional team was set up to build this. So definitely the internal hub. Other than that, I think we
So
have
is that
been
more like a knowledge hub?
so it is our internal chat GPT, if you would like to
I
say.
see. Yeah. Like
So
yeah.
exactly. So obviously the data we were also very careful in what once people got exposed to chat GPT, the kind of requests and queries would go up. that can become a bit tricky. So that's why rollout was done internally, which is more secure in terms of the data that goes out. So I think that was a big achievement. And the second part that we did on top of the generative AI hub is we launched our own generative AI labs. And this labs has small toolkits for end users. They can talk to their data, so they can upload files and they can ask questions. They can actually execute codes. So today, if I'm an end user and I have an Excel file and I want to upload it and quickly do an analysis, we have a code executor solution in there, which, if I were to see, give me a chart of a order trend, for example, it would execute Python codes in the background and then show you the results. So I think Gaia Labs was the right addition. Sorry, I'm using a abbreviation, but basically Generative AI Labs was a good addition on top of the things that we
Right.
rolled out with Hub. We also have our strategy with the generative AI applications is looking at areas where we can create business value and users can also get efficiency gains out of it. So we have focused on smaller areas. We are trying to embed it into the sales and commercial side of things to make it effective for our commercial teams. We are also looking at how we can make things easier for customer service. So a lot of efficiency gain improvements through GenAI. I believe one interesting thing we are working on is also talk to your data, but in a different form, where we're trying to see if we can link it with the databases and then make it easier for, instead of converting it into SQL queries and then hitting the databases to get the desired results. So opening up this avenue for general users.
Okay, I would like to just deep dive into the choice of tools and technology, since that's the core part of generative AI. So if I understand correctly, the DHL GenAI Hub give you that private, so for people who don't understand, RAG is, retrieval augmented
Generation, yeah. Right.
generation, right? So essentially, it helps you to create a private GPT where data are secure and private. And then the GenAI Lab allows people to start using additional functions to be more efficient at generating codes. So a lot of organizations are pursuing these use cases. What's your approach? Like, obviously, there's different choices. You could use some commercially viable product tools, or you can use some open source models or tools like Manchain, Haystack, all these different options out there. What's your approach to them?
I think the approach that we've taken is a good mix of some open source libraries as well as open source solutions, as well as solutions which will help us scale things and also, keep things secure, because I think that's a very big priority for DHL, keeping things secure. So that's why I was very intrigued when we were embarked on the generative AI initiative. We had in the cross-function team, the legal team was a part of it. The legal folks were a part of the team as well. So I think from our perspective, it's a good mix of open source as well as enterprise level solutions that exist. We also try and make that decision of buy versus build, because obviously my department is my team exists. So we have data scientists, we have all the technology, we have data engineers and all the entire tech team to support these kind of initiatives. But I think we are also very pragmatic when it comes to making these buy versus build decisions, and they are based on effort versus something that already exists and is established. But you see a mix. Also, I think the good thing is that the generative AI passionate folks within the organization, within the tech team, they are always on the lookout of what's happening, and they bring it back very quickly to the team to see whether some things can be tried out and tested or not.
Do you guys only work with the giants like OpenAI, Google, Gemini, or it's a mixture of different?
I would say it's a mix. It's a good mix. It wouldn't be right to say that we don't work with the giants. We obviously work with the giants as well. But I think it's a good mix. I think it's a very I think it's approach based on how we can derive value. So obviously speed, stability, as well as security. I think these are some of the key criteria when these decisions are made or at least discussed.
Okay.
So I would say it's a mix. I would not say that it's just the giants alone.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your experience in working with? I mean, just if this is something you can speak openly, like what's experience like? What kind of partner that do you work with? What's the experience like? I've been talking to. So most people come to my show like we'll have interviewed with Microsoft, and obviously the Azure team is driving a big adoption together with OpenAI. Spoken to Google's team, they're launching Gemini 2 Pro. So there's a lot of pocket of excellence. And then also been speaking to startups. There's a company called Viviet who built a pretty strong RAG using their solution. And there's another one I was having a chat from the US called Writer. But I just want to get your experience in, if you're allowed to speak at this level of details, how you experience working with different vendors at different sizes.
I think it's a bit tricky to talk very openly about it, but I think generally our experience is that I think it has a lot to do with the image and with the image of our organization as well as what we are set out to do. I think everybody understands that when we talk about DHL, we're thinking stability, we're thinking performance, and we are talking about very stable, steady course. And being a German headquartered company, obviously the data protection privacy laws are something that we are very careful about, and as we should be. So I think those things play a part. Generally, experience with the partners, I would say that it's been, I think, so when they are talking to us, they already kind of know our persona as a company. And hence, I think the solutions that they offer and the discussions that we had are based around these principles. So I think that way it has been okay. But I do want to say that I think generally I find that our team is very passionate on looking at open source codes and trying it out and testing it out. So that always gives a good balance where somebody has an alternative idea around it. So that's good. Also, within DHL, we have an innovation center. We have the innovation arm, who is basically that's obviously they connect with the customers, but one of their key portfolio is also connecting to startups. So there are regular fast forward they call it the fast forward challenge. There are regular challenges and arenas and avenues where the startups can come and pitch what's been going on. And then DHL also offers opportunity to work for the startups to work with them. So I think generally as a company, I would say we are connected to the startups as well.
Okay, is that only in Europe or is that globally?
No, no, the innovation, innovation center, innovation arm is a global arm. We have 4 innovation centers globally. We have one in very close to our headquarters in Bonn. We have one here in Singapore. We have another one in Chicago, and then we have a Middle East one in Dubai. So the idea is it has a regional presence, and the when the innovation center, if it exists in Singapore, its remit is not just Singapore, it's actually entirety of Asia Pacific. So they reach out, they go to the countries and they organize events and they have these discussions. So fairly, it's a global setup.
Is that to showcase DHL innovation or is that to do some collaborative, innovative work with partners and clients? What's the purpose of Innovation Center? Is that where you're at right now?
I am physically at the innovation center. Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
because
Show us.
this place has a nice web studio as well, and they very kindly allowed me to use it. So
Okay.
um, I think I would say purpose-wise, there are obviously we bring our customers inside the innovation center as a physical space. It's supposed to have lead discussions with customers and into certain areas where the customers want to discuss new technologies or figure out what are the other technologies or ideas that DHL is exploring. So that's one. So customer engagement forms a big part of the innovation center generally, but also we have a trend research team which is always looking at new trends and emerging technologies, and they identify that. And the third thing would be to build a startup ecosystem as well. So that's why I think globally, I if I'm not wrong, there's one fast forward challenge for startups to come happening in a few weeks in Dubai. So these sort of events are regularly organized. One of the key things that they also work in, and this is not just restricted to the field of AI, right?
Mm.
But they work very closely with our business units. And if the business units identify a particular problem statement, they go out looking for solutions. And this may also mean that they are scouting startups at the time to figure out if any startup or any provider has such solution available, and that gets
Mm.
tested. So, well, we are not building our own robots, but the
Mm.
idea is if we have partnered with somebody and that has been deployed to operations, then that gets showcased at the innovation center as well. So that's the ideology. Whatever best justice I could do, that's the idea behind the innovation
Right.
center.
Okay. Robots. Since you mentioned it, I can tell it should be a big part of any logistic companies, not only just in the warehouse, but probably beyond. What's your view of crossroad of AI and robotics? What is DHL start trying things out?
Yes, always.
Okay.
Always. I think we have been testing robots in the warehouses for a very long time. I also remember that one of my good friend had set up had set up a nice exhibit within the innovation center where it was a combination of a computer vision. It was a picking. He had set up a exhibit of uh, picking robot, which had a camera, and basically when the order was placed it would detect the right item and then it would pick it up and put it in the bin. So it was kind of showcasing computer vision working with the robots, how can they work in the unison, and how can be used. I think we have explored a lot of methods in terms of robots and automation, and some have worked, some have not worked, and a lot of it works on because we are looking at such different product types, such different landscape when it comes to warehouses. I think
Mm.
it becomes there's no one solution that fits all. It has to be depending on that particular situation. So I think in terms of AI, I think we have quite a few autonomous robots as well that are working. So I think that's already happening.
Mm.
I see it becoming a lot more prevalent. We have to, the right balance has to be found though, because a lot of times, we can say that, okay, this robot can pick things up. However, there are constraints when we are talking about the specific location or the specific product types, which has to be evaluated. And that's what is being done in this building, right? They do a proof of concept with the operations to test it out whether it works or not.
Okay, maybe we just go a little bit deeper on this topic. I was listening to Owen podcast. I don't know if you're a fan of them. There was one prediction. Actually, let me just bring it up on the screen so people can see it.
Since
Right.
we're talking about the innovation opportune time to try something different.
Yeah. Okay. They were talking about this robots, like made of China. It's
Beautiful.
a pretty amazing by the gesture and the motion it can do. And it's very programmable. It has API interfaces, which means you can program this robot to do whatever you like. And it's made for mass production. I think right now it costs about 1,600 USD for this robot, as you can see, it can navigating. And I think, Owen predict this will be one of the key trends in 2025. How far? Okay, obviously that's like, people, investors who are really bullish about the AI robotics. Do you see this kind of stuff in DHL or somewhere close to this?
But this is not any endorsement, but I'm familiar with the company Unitree.
Okay.
If I'm not wrong, if I go to the next room, I think we have the go-to. Uh,
Oh,
so
nice.
uh, so I'm familiar with it. I think we've had it on. So we got the We got the Unitree dog here in Asia Pacific as an exhibit. I think it was 3 to 4 years ago, I believe. The idea again, part of the innovation is also thought leadership and seeing things out there that people are not thinking about in terms of mass usage as well. So the idea is, how can we look at the future and see probably things, how different things can be in the future. So
Mm,
we looked at it in terms of, I'm talking about this specific thing, right, a few years
mm,
ago. And obviously there are some technical constraints. So I think the dog itself was fairly decent and stable. And to not to just talk about one company, we've had the Boston Dynamics dog in
mm,
the other innovation center as well as an exhibit, as a centerpiece too. I think our idea is to see what the future can be like. We it's I think we are a bit far from realization of when it is heavily adopted. I mean, it's not going to happen in the next 1 year or so because the use cases are very different. The
mm,
use cases are, I think, one thing that comes to my mind is I remember, Leo, probably you'll remember as well. I think the Singapore government, the NEA, started monitoring the parks
mm,
with the Boston Dynamic dogs, if I'm not wrong, a few couple years ago. So I think
mm,
there are definitely use cases. I think we were also trying to see, if deliveries are possible, like not mass deliveries, but we, as Innovation Center, was trying out if the dog can do a delivery if something was strapped on. And
yeah,
then we were talking about how would it go. I mean, obviously you can have it climb on the stairs, but how would it go on the lift? And if there's possibility to use the API to integrate it with the HDB lifts, for example. So
mm,
I
mm,
think
mm.
there are lots of creative ideas. I think the question always becomes the ROI versus the ROI in this case, and also what kind of gains are we looking at in terms of efficiency as well.
Mm.
So I think
What's your personal view on like the economics? Like right now, these dogs are very expensive. Like I don't know, like I mean, 1600 USD, is that expensive or is that not? As a toy, it probably is, but as a production vehicle, I think it's not. Do you think that there is economic value that these companies need to drive their robotic solution to in order to create a mass production? And if so, like, is there like a number in your head? Personally, that's your personal. It does not represent DHL.
so for me, Leo, I think the exact scenario or the exact use case becomes very important. If we are talking about, so let's think of a hypothetical scenario where we have the delivery vans which have come down to the building, and now there are 15 deliveries to be made in the nearby estate. And I see that this sort of a dog or something could be used, but then there are constraints here. Now, what the video that we just saw, what Unitree has managed to do is make a really small dog, which is very agile, but again, the carrying capacity, the surface area that is available to place the items, that is a
Yeah.
constraint. So then you are looking at fixing some sort of a contraption on top to keep the parcels and everything. Then the other thing is acceptance from the end user of how would it ring a bell or how would it knock a door, and then how would it drop the things. And then
Of course.
that's where we start looking at the operational constraints of it. It's difficult. I think it depends, right? If you're talking about monitoring and surveillance, I think then there is definitely some scope, and it can cover a large area, and people are not losing their sleep over things and etc. So I think that area it's there, but difficult for me to give a number because again I would again look at it from a very use case and application specific point of view.
True, true. That makes sense. That makes sense. And what? So currently, like, I assume there are robotic solution already adopted. I've seen like Amazon warehouses are fully automated, and not to mention there's some unmade factory in China, like 10,000 square feet is all managed with a couple of guys watching the systems. Is that similar? Do you see that happening within the?
I think the level of automation will definitely increase. I think the time frames may be a bit longer personally, but I do see the level of automation increasing. However, we also have to evaluate the geographical area where we are operating in,
Mm,
because a
mm,
lot of time automation is a heavy investment, and
true.
then how do we balance that with the workforce and how these things are looked at in terms of if we were to completely automate a warehouse, there's a lot of investment, and then how long will it take for us to get the ROI? At least I'm talking about it from a very Asia Pacific point of view in this case.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when these evaluations are done, we look at 10 years or 20 years of ROI.
Yeah.
And that is the point where the key decision makers who are signing off on the automation projects have to make, whether 10 years or 20 years, what's the threshold that they are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I do see automation is continuously increasing. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's happening very organically. To a fully automated warehouse, I think we are not super far, but again, my personal take is that it will be very geography specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's interesting on the robotic side, and I'd be very keen to see the progression over the years, and hopefully there will be some unmanned drone come over to my balcony and drop my stuff right now. Actually, so like I live in Hong Kong now, so obviously like the e-commerce players, without mentioning their names, is all over the place, right? So, but the delivery is still like I have to go to this depot that's near my house, like drag bags and across the lift. And the reason to that is you could get them to deliver to my doorstep, but then it's a bit more expensive. And there are some those lockers where they will leave it at the basement
Yeah.
of your building, and then you can pick up. But still, I think if there are certain robotic solution that can make it even easier, I think that will probably increase the e-commerce business by another 2 or 3 times. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, for DHL, like, do you see last mile delivery? Maybe, I mean, on the logistic, I don't know enough about DHL. I guess you're not on the last mile, but like, what's your view on the last mile delivery?
No,
Uh,
we do last mile. We have at least we our express business unit does a lot of
oh,
last
that's
mile
true.
delivery.
Yes.
So we are definitely playing in the space. But I picked on that. It's very interesting. You see, you were saying that if it was to be delivered at my home, then that's extremely convenient. And one of the interesting thing I remember, our managing director of Express here in Singapore, I heard him speak, and he was telling us he was telling about how folks are also on the other side of the other spectrum is that people want flexibility. So I want the delivery at home, but then what if I'm not there, and then somebody has to retry. And yes, of course, it's not a nice user experience, but from a logistics company perspective, it's additional cost to retry the delivery as well.
Mm,
So I think what we saw is, I think there was an option created where DHL Express reaches out to you proactively and says, this is the window that we're looking at. Are you going to be there? And if you're not going to be there, then is it okay for us to drop it at the collection center or parcel box, which is located in fairly, at least from a Singapore perspective, located fairly conveniently, or sometimes even just at the basement.
mm,
So a lot of people started using that option to just redirect it to the collection box.
mm,
So that's an interesting thing, right? And this is where I think this is the beauty. Obviously, I think it will depend on user preferences, but as users now, we are seeing different trends emerge as to there are folks who want the delivery at home. There are folks who want, okay, just leave it there. When I come, I'll pick it up and I'll get it at my convenience time. And some folks proactively changing their delivery times to match their schedule as well. So there are all these different options available, and now it's very interesting as to how the back end of it works. Because as users, when I receive a delivery, I take that option, right? Just send it to the collection box or just reschedule it, and it's a simple 2-3 click process for me. But on the back end, it's very interesting because all these things are happening dynamically. Even the routing is
yeah,
happening dynamically, where somebody says, okay, leave it at this collection center or leave it at this box, and then the driver has to figure this out and drop it there. Or if they reschedule it and you already have left with these many things, then this gets removed and something else gets added. So I think that becomes very interesting from a technological point of view to provide such options and then be able to fulfill it.
mm.
Um, so yeah, I
I,
think
I, this is a very interesting because people don't see the back end of all the algorithms that are going behind to dispatch and retrieve and redispatch all that stuff. I actually watched a movie recently. It's made of a real story. I think the English name is called Upstream. It's basically a movie made of It's based on Meituan. I don't know if you heard of this company. So they're like one of the top four, I'll say, super app in China. Essentially, it delivers everything to you, like whether you want to order food or vegetables, deliver things, order a meal in the restaurant. So it's a super app. So imagine like, Grab Express merged with Food Panda and Uber Eats, all that. That's how powerful they are. And they have like hundreds of thousands Grab delivery guys, like people who are delivering. Anyway, the movie is about like this mid-aged man like my age who lost a job. He was an IT guy. I couldn't get a job because it was too expensive. Then he basically, it's a real story. And then he went to apply for a job as a delivery boy, a delivery man. And it's all about, obviously they've been paid based on how many orders you deliver. And it's somewhere between 4 to 6. So like $1 to $2 Sing dollar, or less than $1 US per order. And if you're really, really good, you could make up to, I think, about 2,500 USD per month. If not, it's less than 1,000. This entire movie is about how he learned to deal with delivery as a physical job, but also beating the system because there are algorithms against you to say, if you're a good delivery man, you get order that is easy, closer, in a more nicer location, not difficult to navigate. And then they have your different rankings. So it's just very fascinating to see how AI can make things efficient, but yet at the same time at a cost of people's physical stress. I'm not sure, like, do you guys employ a delivery person directly, or you're working with a partner? How do you see this kind of things happening, phenomenon on a global scale?
No, we have our own delivery drivers, obviously. I think, and this is, I mean, you touch on a very broad subject and also something, I mean, I think around change management or acceptance of technology and solutions as well. I think I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing, we call this a Gemba ride. So I did a half day route with a delivery van, just sitting next to them and seeing how things work and just actually following them with to do the delivery, just to understand how the process works and also just see the lives of when we are talking about implementing a new solution, how that impacts the life of a delivery person. So I sat there and obviously they have this device where they have all the drop-offs, but also pickups are coming in simultaneously because they can do the pickups on the way as well. So the algorithm is basically planning the delivery, the drop-off location based on a set thing, but also pickups are coming in, and that's being coordinated, and it's happening in real time. Where the entire tour, this entire tour is being planned and thing. So the conversation also was very interesting, where it was, we know this place very well, so we have a set path of how we do things, like which route do we take, because we know at this time it works and this time it works. They were like, initially it was very difficult because simple things, when we give an address, I think the maps technologies are getting better at this, but there is, when we are talking about a big building, a warehouse, a factory, a very easy thing that maps the application do is take the center of the building as the pinpoint, and they will try and navigate you to that place unless somebody has marked the specific entry or exit points.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you're talking about a large warehouse or if we're talking about a large factory, there is a specific place where the orders get delivered. It's at their warehouse receiving location. And this location is not necessarily something that Google Maps or the standard Maps apps will recognize. So I know that within DHL, we had to, based on the data that we built our own geocoding API to know, because we knew where we were dropping things specifically. And that would be the real place to drop. We built our own geocoding API, which would give this exact space so we could navigate to that exact location. So that was a journey as well, where, if you just use the standard applications, you would just navigate to a specific location, but the drivers know exactly where to drop. And then, so that was when initially when it was launched, that was the process where drivers were like, no, it's not the right location. And then the feedback started where drivers said that, okay, no, this is the location is actually different, and this is the location, and that started getting incorporated into the actual application, and things improved. So, and that's where they also started trusting the solution and the algorithm, that okay, this is how to help me. So I think there are two sides of it, right? I think in a lot of cases, I think depends, because some of the applications where we use the content that we watch more, it feeds us more of that. So there are, I think it depends on some of the domains, but I definitely see a lot of positives coming out of it. But that is where we have to be very safe with the models that we are training, the biases that exist in the model, and how do
Mm.
we keep a lookout for it and make sure that things are kept as fair as they can be.
Mm.
So I've seen both sides of it, right? As a personal user as well. I mean, all the recommendations of have you bought this, or
Mm.
when you
Yeah,
talk about something in the room and the next day you start seeing the ads for it.
I know.
So
Crazy. Not even next day. Like,
true,
yeah,
true. Not even the next day, in the next couple hours, right?
yeah.
So I think that's where I think we have to be very careful, right? As people involved with this data and AI field, with the organizations, where we are careful about
Mm.
all these issues.
Mm. Okay, let's talk about AI safety and privacy. Obviously, it's a very big topic, so we could probably can speak for an hour. A simple question of how much of your attention effort, I guess, as an organization, are going into AI safety.
A lot of it. I think a lot of it. That's why personally, I was surprised at the speed with which we got started with the generative AI initiatives, but also that is a big testament to the teams that came together and made it happen, where there was always representation from legal, business, who were always there. So it's very important. In fact, every project that every it goes through an initial legal assessment. So now I remember I was sharing this in one of the conferences that it used to be when it started. Obviously, it was an ad hoc process. When I say ad hoc, means it was not something that was very streamlined. You still needed to go to the legal and get the assessment done. But as the data analytics AI teams started working with the legal understood our needs. We understood what they were looking at as well, and then basically a process was set up, which is very easy. So there's an initial legal assessment, which is basically, I think now it's 10 questions of yes and no. And the questions ask you things like, are you using this sort of a data? So if it's all no, then it's very straightforward. Then everything goes through smoothly. But the moment one of the questions is yes, then that's where the next level of detailed assessment needs to happen, where we need to, we have to discuss different things of how much, what we need to anonymize, how much effort needs to be put in, or if it's actually possible or not. So I think that sort of a thing, that sort of a process is very embedded into how we work. The EU AI Act also plays a part in this. So I would say a lot of importance is given to that.
Okay. Um, as a person, how much of your time you're spending learning all these different developments, either on a model level or application level?
So, well, interesting question, Leo. So this is where I think this is my thought of how I quantify learning is obviously I try and read the articles. I try and see, connect with like-minded people, because I think that sort of a conversation helps a lot. But what I also see is just talking to the team and the different, just talking to the wider team. I think that opens up a lot of opportunity. And one thing that I see within my organization, within the team here in the DHL Data Analytics, is that the team is very willing to explore things and then bring it back and discuss it with the team. I know that in our internal channel, just a couple days ago, somebody posted, "Hey, we discovered this amazing AI code editor," and the next day, and then they just mentioned it, and then a few people tried it, and they said, "Hey, these are the good things, these are the bad things, and
Mm.
we should discuss further on how we can potentially utilize it, because it looks like a positive thing." And now, so that's the kind of conversations that are happening within the team as well. And I think I look at that as a learning opportunity for myself, because it's just impossible to keep abreast with everything that's happening in the AI world at this point of time.
Yeah.
So So for me, obviously, formally, I try and read the articles and see what's happening, as well as some avenues of podcasts and videos. But
Yeah,
I find just talking to the team
yeah.
that helps a lot.
Okay. Do you subscribe to any AI newsletters?
A few of them. I don't know if I should be saying the names of it, but a few of them.
Okay. Well, you should only say one AI Business Asia newsletter. So everybody still look at our newsletters. We cover amazing news from the West and East and other insights, such as this one, promoting myself a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Like I subscribe to quite a number of them. And I felt the challenge is not so much of what's happening, how fast it happens, and what the amazing impact it does. It's more of this increasingly gap that is between my cognitive intelligence versus artificial intelligence. It just doesn't consume fast enough, right? I think that's the modern day challenge. Would you agree?
Absolutely. But I think I don't look at myself as, at least in my current role. I'm not looking at myself who's going to go build out the models,
Mm,
or that's the focus that I have. I think I also look at it from a perspective of talking to the stakeholders and helping them to see how I can help them derive value using the AI analytics knowledge and the team that I can lean on. So I
mm.
see that part becoming increasingly more important. And I completely agree with you. I think the number of things that are happening and the amazing changes that are happening, I think it's very difficult to keep up to date, and how much are you going to consume and how much of it would be retained, right? But I think for me, I look at it from, if I've learned something, if I've understood something, then see how applicable it is, right? Sometimes it's good for me to know just that technology wise, it's an amazing thing to find out. But then we see that it's not necessarily of use, and then I look at, okay, then maybe it's time for me to look at something else because this is not going to add value
Yeah, yeah,
in the current situation that I'm in. So, yeah,
correct,
but completely agree with you on that point.
correct. Then on the strategy side, how are you distinguishing between a genuine AI capability versus the market hype? And how do you evaluate these solutions in your organization? Is it always about whether a yield value today,
Yeah.
or there's a sort of a roadmap to see, okay, there's a possibility this something could big happen in the next year or two?
So I think, okay, there are both aspects of it. There are things that we keep a lookout in terms of trends that are emerging. However, I think this segmentation becomes a lot easier for us because the question that I ask from myself is, if I take this to a business unit, will they pay for deploying or using this sort of a solution or not? And I think
Yeah.
then the answer becomes very easy. So I think sometimes it's difficult for us as folks involved in this field. Sometimes we want to do cool things,
Mm.
and that's correct. We should do as well, but a lot of times we have to do things that add value, and I think that's a simple question that I ask myself.
Mm.
If I take it to a business unit, if I take it to a commercial head, if I take it to the managing director or operations director, will
Mm.
they pay for this sort of solution or
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
So that keeps me in check.
Yeah, I think that's a universal check. Things that keep everyone in check. Like definitely, I think when I started my own startup, well, after 1 month before we go in building a product, the question I ask is whether I will be willing to pay for this product myself. At the time, I was that I don't think I would. Therefore, it become a criteria that I do not invest in this product development. Which now, in hindsight, I think it was absolutely correct decision because a lot of startups who I knew for a fact that raise money, spend 50-60% of the funding on a product development and realize there is no customer for it at the end. So that happens quite a bit. It's not only so I'm sure for a large organization as DHL, you will see it the same. Then I guess what's really hot and everyone talking about is agentic services. Could you give some personal viewpoint on this topic on agentic services?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot of efficiency gains from it. From an organization perspective, I feel that logistics being so operations heavy, as well as how much ever we try to avoid sometimes process and SOPs and heavy, as well as a lot of time documents heavy. So I think this is, I think it definitely can add a value, automating certain cases. And that's where I think we also have to be smart about, when to use AI agents versus when to use RPA where it works. So I think that's one thing that I see. A lot of times, some folks just jump into the bandwagon of, okay, this is going to change everything. But we should not forget that there are lots of evolution technologies and solutions available, have been available for a while to us, and we have to pick the right ones, or at least try to make that call very objective to pick the right ones based on the available resources and the context. But agentic AI, definitely, I see quite a lot of efficiency gains coming out of it. I think it's not going to overhaul all the processes, but I think it can definitely help with the existing processes quite a bit in terms of desktop research, in terms of certain automation. I think it definitely adds a lot of value. I mean, I see customs as an area, right? Customs clearances, etc. Their automation can be used up. Customer service for sure, as well as, I mean, I believe we did a press release for it as well. It's not exactly agentic AI, but it's still GenAI LLM based, where we work with BCG to build this solution, which helps our account teams, because we work
Yeah.
with so many RFPs, request
Yeah.
proposals.
Proposal.
The idea was summarizing all these requests for proposals and providing some context to the account team. So just, it's not going to replace them, but it's going to help them prepare the next level of detail so they can focus on the customers more and think about it from their perspective rather than doing the summarization work. So I think I definitely see areas where it is going to aid individuals.
Okay. And then looking to where in the first month of 2025, and I remember 2024 has been such big roller coaster for a lot of AI companies. What's happening, with OpenAI. Now the new announcement from US, the Stargate project. It sounds like 2025 is nothing but more accelerated journey for AI. What fascinates you for this year? What are you looking for in the
I
space of
think,
AI?
yeah, I think from my perspective, I think this year should be this year generally. I'm saying not just from DHL's perspective, but just generally. I think for a lot of organizations, I think this should be the year of scaling. I think proof of concepts have been done. I think some value has been derived. I think this should be the year of consolidation and scaling, I want to say, for organizations that have already tested the technology. Because I think a lot of times, I mean, I'm sure Leo, you can relate to this. A lot of proof of concepts sometimes remain proof of concepts perpetually,
Yeah,
uh, and eventually get killed. So I think,
yeah,
my wish is that this is the year for consolidation and scaling when it comes to generative AI specifically, and also hopefully we remember the traditional AI, machine learning, e-learning as well, because I think there is a lot of potential. At least when I look at supply chains.
mm,
When I look at supply chains, I think there's a lot of potential that is still to be explored.
100%. Yeah, I mean there is a black box, and there has to be a reason for it, because those are the dirty work that people don't want to spend time and understand, and that's why you exist, I exist. People really cares about the fundamentals. So I think the human intelligence, in my personal view, I think human intelligence is still a key, but we apply that differently. Like, a genetic service, to me right now, solving a small percentage of end-to-end value, but people like to apply a genetic service. But who is going to teach AI to understand the workflow and to see things end-to-end? It has to be a human intelligence, which is us. So I think in the foreseeable future, we definitely have a value to play. In 20, 30 years time, when our kids are grown up, that might be a different story.
Absolutely right. I think I'm forgetting what I was reading, but it was, I was looking, I remember this very specific thing that the article mentioned, that we also have to think about how we are preparing our workforce to adopt AI as well as adapt with AI, because not just in technical teams, I think in technical teams as well, I think we need to see if if 3 years down the line, if we're going to see that a lot of coding will be auto generated, then okay, we probably don't need folks who are coding all the time. I'm not saying no software engineers are needed, but I'm saying we don't need as many of software engineers for writing basic codes. But somebody has to still define the business logic, which has always been a part of software development. And that means that now, whenever a business user is thinking about it, they are thinking about embedding business logic into an AI application, and they are approaching it from that perspective. That means they also need to understand how an AI application would understand it. We are talking about automating test cases, for example, but somebody has written down these test cases first. Obviously, we can take these test cases, we can use LLM, and we can convert them into some code snippets, and then we can execute them. But somebody has had to understand the process and write these test cases. So I don't see, I think jobs evolving. I see more jobs created, but I also see that I think already need to start thinking about how we're going to upskill, how we're going to train folks into utilizing the AI applications. So yeah, I agree with you on that
Yeah.
front, that the human element is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Parade. It's been a really fruitful conversation. Lots of excitement, but being cautious about AI safety. I appreciate sharing this with us. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to put this in production and let our listeners and give out feedbacks and hopefully somewhere down the line to have you come back to our podcast to show the progress you're making in 2025.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leo. This was my pleasure. I genuinely really loved our conversation, and I liked how it was a very free flowing conversation. So, thank you so much.